We're joined by Missouri's legendary multiple national champion, Keegan O'Toole. Keegan, yes, round of applause.
Tiger
Keegan,
style.
how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. Today was the first day that I actually was able to sleep through the night since I got surgery, so that was nice.
Dang. So why don't you? I know Bader's wants to catch up with you a little bit. Why don't you catch us up? What's been up with you since NCAAs? We all saw you were in the big old knee brace. What's been going on?
Yeah, I mean, so nationals happened, and then we had our spring break. So I was like, and obviously I tore my ACL way earlier in the year. And I was like, I told the bus Tarbox, right, Bader?
Yep, doctor.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I want to do my surgery right away, but I want to actually enjoy my spring break. So flew one of my old teammates, Sean Harmon, back into town, and he stayed at our house, and we hung out for spring break. And then the day he left, or the next day, got surgery on April 3rd. So just been recovering and just been kind of tired all the time and just in a lot of pain recently, but we're getting better.
All right. I guess let's back up and just kind of get to it. I know you made a post. I think you were maybe laid up in the hospital bed, or I saw a post where you kind of said your ACL. But when did this happen? How did this happen? Kind of give us some of the backstory of it. Was during the season, right? Maybe even the collegiate duels or sooner.
Dude, it was a weird process, but I mean, we wrestled Virginia Tech, I think, like on the middle of November, and man, that dude was kind of dirty. He was pulling at my knees, putting me in arm locks and choking me. And at one point, I went single and I came out the back, and he was just yanking on my foot, like both my heel and my toe, and I was like turning to try to pull my leg to get out of it, and then all of a sudden I just felt a pop. And it kind of hurt for a minute, but then the pain went away, and I ended up finishing the match, getting a major decision. And then I just thought that I popped my calf or something, because it wasn't like I felt instability or anything like that. And then wrestled a couple more matches, and then in practice it would pop a little bit, and I was like, I'm a goer at practice. So I was like, I'm wrestling all the live, I'm doing all the practices, stuff like that. Yeah. So popped 3 or 4 times in practice, but it was just kind of weird. And every time our doctor, Tarbox, or our trainer Sweet kind of examined it, it was like, doesn't feel super loose in there. And so I was like, okay. So I would just maybe heat up my knee and do a little calf stretching and quad stretching before practice, and just make sure it was warmed up. And then we went into the collegiate duels, and it was obviously still bugging me, but not nearly as bad. And then wrestled Little Rock, got a tech fall, and then we wrestled Binghamton. And in that first period, he shot on my leg, and I just kind of felt like I finally give. Probably that's definitely the feeling. It was whoa, it felt like my two bones, my tibia and my femur, just went like this for a moment. And I ended up getting I think I won that match 21-8, and then obviously immediately after I went to wrestle Penn State, and obviously it hurt really bad, but I was like, all right, whatever, let's just do this thing. We only got one more match. So then wrestled that match, got a gutty overtime win, and then I woke up the next day, and we had 3 days off. And I woke up the next day, and I told my wife, I need you to help me get out of bed right now. I can't really, my knee is really swollen. I couldn't really straighten my leg. I could walk, but it was more like a hobble. And so I just took those days. I was like, maybe if I just ice and take the days off wrestling, it'll get a little bit better. But then it just didn't. And then went and got an MRI. And I kind of just thought it was going to be maybe a meniscus. You just need them to go in and scope it. And, that's only a couple week recovery. But I remember I got the MRI at 6 a.m., I think on the 29th. And then went back to bed afterwards because it only took 20 minutes. And then Tarbox called me, our surgeon. He's like, hey, you need to come in. I was like, okay. So I went over to COG, his orthopedic group right by our house, and he was like, you have a ACL tear. And I was like, I didn't really know how to react. I was like, so what does that mean? Can I wrestle? And he was like, well, if I operate on you now, you'd be done. I was like, well, I don't want that. And he was like, we're probably just going to have to take a lot of time off and make do with what we have. And they hooked me up with a brace, and we put in a plan in place, and then we just kind of went from there and just kind of saw how it feel. And those first like December 22nd, October. Yeah, those like first like 2 months were just terrible. Like I was like, dude, I have literally no clue how I'm gonna do anything. All I can do is get in a stance and maybe like hand fight a little bit. But really around that 2 month mark, I saw like mobility improvement and a little bit more strength improvement. So I was like, all right, well, I have a little bit more to rely on now, but obviously it was completely not the same at all. And so just having to just mentally just make do with what I had. And then that's kind of how that went. And I wrestled in one dual Iowa State on senior night, and then Big 12s and then NCAAs. So season was very, very short for me, but I still had fun.
Man, as you met with the doc after collegiate duels and you're talking and he says, you got the MRI and you're trying to recover. Was there ever a moment where you're like, I don't even know, forget the surgery. I want to go wrestle at nationals. Was there ever a point along the way where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to wrestle at nationals?
Yeah, no, there was a lot of feelings like that. I'm not going to lie. There was probably daily where I'm like, I don't know if I could do this. But that's where the people around me were so supportive. Like our athletic trainer put in a plan. He was like, no, it's going to get better. Like, you're going to be okay. Coach Smith, first thing he said to me, he's like, well, you're going to make a good banquet story. Referring to if I like doing really good at nationals, like on a bad knee. And so, yeah, I mean, there was like a daily battle of like, I really probably shouldn't be wrestling. And then also right around that time, there was a couple other guys like in NCAA that I saw, like I think one of the Michigan 133s, Ragusin from Illinois, who we grew up wrestling all up against. Like, I'm pretty sure he tore his ACL and he was done for the year. And so like, I was like, man, like, it did cross me. I was like, man, if I stopped right now, I wouldn't be like abnormal. But like, I was like, I can't do it. I was like, I got to push through this. Like, this is, God wants me to go through this test. Like, I felt like everyone just pushing me the right way. And I was like, I'm not stopping. I don't care how it ends up. I'm going through this. And I'm so happy I did.
Where do you think you were, health-wise, percentage, however you want to quantify it, at Big 12s? And then same question for nationals.
It was probably identical, not going to lie. Felt the exact same. My knee didn't really get in. I mean, it wasn't going to get any better because I needed surgery, but it was probably roughly the same.
But what was the same? Was it 50%, 80%, somewhere more or less than that?
Oh, that's hard to judge because, I mean, I look at the things that I could do and the things that I couldn't do, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm half the wrestler that I am physically. But I think there was part of me that was a lot stronger mentally.
From going through it?
It was just like, yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of mental strength growth, just toughness in terms of find a way. Coach Smith always talks about you got to find a way. Champions find a way. And so there was a lot of matches where I'm like, this may be so ugly and this may just look terrible. And I may be taking super slow shots, getting my hands locked underneath and just fighting for a minute-long finish to get a win. But if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. Mm-hmm. So my body, I don't know, hard to say, definitely pretty far off to what I feel like is my best performance.
Sure. Where was your confidence level? Because obviously you're unsure, and maybe the same question, right? Where was confidence going into Big 12s, knowing you had a guy like Hamiti, and then nationals, mm-hmm. where you got everybody?
Yeah, confidence level. I just kind of had to block it out. Like, it wasn't. I wrestled through injury at nationals before, but obviously this is a whole new scenario. Confidence wise, it was a lot of my coaches just reaffirming, the belief and just being like, hey, like, if anyone's going to do this, it's going to be you. And so that was super helpful. And then just kind of relying on, my, everything I'd write in my journal and, my prayers daily were something that really just kept me going. If I didn't do those things, there would be no shot that I would even finish close to what I did.
What was the biggest way that it impacted you? On your feet and scrambles, I don't know, you can take that however you want.
I would say the position that it didn't affect me the most was top wrestling. It's probably why I got a lot of my, a lot of ride outs, a lot of, semifinals at nationals. I had to get out riding time point to get the win. Definitely on bottom and on my feet were the two worst. Like, bottom was like, if I don't have to go down, I'm not going down. Cause like I couldn't sit back on my shoes. Like, that was not an option. Like, my butt to heel was like, I couldn't even get like this close. And so like on my leg, when I did go bottom, my leg was like flared out to the side. And obviously like I can't stop someone from tight waist ankling and ripping my heel up to my butt and driving me. And obviously with a big brace, it kind of draws a lot of attention. So I was kind of like worried about that. So if I didn't have to go bottom, I was not going bottom. And then on my feet, it was like hand fighting. Obviously I could still hand fight really good, but at the same time, like my feet were just so slow. I couldn't shoot lefty, which sucks because I have really good lefty shots, I think. And then my righty shots were just a little bit slower, so I had to have better timing.
Sure. Looking back now, right? Obviously, the goal is to win. You took second. How do you feel about the whole thing? All things considered, of course.
All things considered, I'm a competitor and I freaking hate losing. So part of me is like, man, I wish I would have. Obviously, I didn't get the result I wanted, and like part of me wakes up daily and I'm like, man, that one sucks. Like that eats at me, especially after getting a win against them in the Big 12 finals. But also the other part of me is like, man, like you grew a lot from this. Like this is something like, you know, if I do come back and wrestle freestyle, you know, in years to come, I'm like, all right, well, this is going to be something that carries you. That, you know, when you're in Olympic trials, Olympic finals, like you would have wanted this experience under your belt after, you know, falling short of nationals. Like I'd rather have, Maple put it to me well, he's like, you going through this now could mean that when you get to the Olympic finals, like you're able to, you know, push through and maybe, you know, something does happen where you don't have that mental strength and you don't have that experience. And so like, look at it as like, this is experience for, you know, going forward.
Yeah, that's a good.
And also something that you can pass on to like athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good segue because my next question was more related to the future. What is next for you? You mentioned Olympic finals. Obviously, you're going to be sidelined for a bit, but when do you plan to come back? What weight class? Are you going to, you know, join the RTC there at Missouri? Just give us your kind of long-term, maybe through 2028 plans, Keegan.
Yeah, I mean, I got a real good setup here in Columbia. I've gotten in touch with an amazing home builder in town, Russ Anderson, who, you know, has really helped me out building my first house. And I've been working alongside him in terms of like business and stuff like that, because I'm really into like things like business and taxes and entrepreneurial type things. But wrestling wise, yeah, it's going to be a long time. Like this is a brutal recovery. I was not ready for this. And so I think that obviously like going to be at least like 7-8 months before I can compete. And I guess it's just like, we'll see how it feels. I would like to obviously come back as soon as I can, but if something were to happen to my knee again or like a re-tear or something, I would be done. Like I definitely would call it done. But so it's just doing the right things now and taking the time now to rehab properly so that when I come back, I'm as effective and the best wrestler and back to what I feel like I can be, you know. And I would say, I mean, weight class wise, simple. I'm probably not an 86 kilo guy for Olympics. I'd be too fat there. But I'd say probably, you know, 79, 74, something like that. We'll just see how we feel and stuff like that. I'm cool with going either weight class. It just, obviously 74 kilos for the Olympics if I were to do that. But
right. Now, thinking about 74 kilograms, the U.S. Open's this week. David Carr, Mitchell Mesenbrink could potentially wrestle. There's some other really good guys there. You got Quincy Monday, Jared JQ's Missouri guy. But you have a lot of familiarity with both. David Carr as a competitor, training partner, Mitchell Mesenbrink. I want just your overall thoughts on what that match might look like in freestyle, and if you have a lean either way on who would potentially win that match.
I definitely think that obviously stalling and passivity is completely different. And so I don't think that's going to be a factor. Like obviously it made that match at Nationals really close with the stalling calls. So, I mean, David's been training freestyle for, you know, it's just strictly for a while now. So I think he's got the leg up there, but then again, it's like, obviously, you know, growing up, that's all we did was like, once folk style was over, we were training freestyle for almost as long as we were training folk style. And so obviously Mitchell's no slouch when it comes to freestyle. He's very good. And so, I mean, I guess I don't know how that match plays. I think it's going to be very close. I would say it comes down to maybe if their par-tear defense, I'd say David's got really good leg lace transition off of his low ankle attacks, as we saw against the Japan guy.
Yeah.
And so if he's able to minimize the points he gives up there, speaking of that, he just texted me. I think it's going to be very close. Obviously, Mitchell's going to take a lot of shots and push the pace. Hoping he can utilize the edge there with getting underneath and just driving him out. Because obviously, if I were to just take it at face value, Mitchell's going to take probably like 5x the amount of shots as David will.
Yeah, no question. Watching Mitchell this last year compared to a year ago, what have you seen progression-wise in his wrestling?
Just knowing him, like growing up and knowing he's so go. Obviously that, again, someone who's very, very, who can keep up with the paces can be very counteroffensive against him because he obviously goes underneath a lot. And that's something that gets you more tired than anything. Like going underneath and getting stuck underneath by far drains way more energy than just being the guy who's down blocking or sprawling. So I'd say being a little bit more calculated is something that, even at his U23 Worlds, Ben was talking to me about not too long ago, or like when it happened, he was like, yeah, man, he's just a little too reckless and things like that. And so I'm sure that, he's very analytical and always is looking to improve, and being more calculated is something I would say that, I've had problems with as well. Just shoot and getting underneath and tiring yourself out instead of being a little bit more calculated and still being effective and taking a lot of attacks. But, understanding that you're not a robot. You can't just like nonstop continue to do things. Like you have to have strategy behind it too.
Yeah. How much have you thought about, because all of last year there was so much discussion, like it kind of for a period of time, it looked like you and Mitchell were maybe the two best 65s. Of course, you had David Carr there as well, but there was the potential for that match for a while. How much have you thought about potentially wrestling Mitchell down the line? And, you have your sights set on 74 Olympic title, as does he. There's a potential collision there. What are your thoughts on that match?
I'm not gonna lie, it probably will happen. I hope it does, because that would mean that, AWA and Arrowhead High School would produce two of the best 74 kilo guys in 2028. So that would be fantastic for both of us to be up there and just representing Arrowhead High School, AWA, Wisconsin, all of the above. But it's like anything. We're gonna be cordial, and we know each other well, and I know their family so well. And every time I go back home, I always see Coach Mesenbrink and, his little brother Mac running around. And so, like, obviously we go out there, we're going to battle, and, we're going to battle hard. And, I'm hoping to get my hand raised, and he's hoping to get his hand raised. But, past that, it's like, we're just going to go back to, just those two Arrowhead High School teammates.
Awesome. Well, Keegan, I know you've got maybe a meeting or something with Coach Smith to get back to you, and Coach Smith was gracious enough to allow you to come on here for this. So we really appreciate it. Anything else before we let you get back to your day?
No. Thank you guys for having me. And then, MIZ Bader.
ZOU.
There you go. Hey, this guy's wrestling in Veterans or Masters Nationals, whatever it's called.
Wednesday.
Did you know this?
Flying out tomorrow.
What weight class? Like the 200-pound weight class?
Yeah, 62 kilos, bro.
Oh, he is lean.
Lean and mean. Been getting at it. So.
All right. Well, get after it. Represent the Tigers well.
Thank you. I will. Appreciate it, Keegan.
And then I think Ben said you should ask him about this. I think he said he may be coming back and wrestling in some like pro wrestling thing soon. So.
All right. Well, I'm in.
That's
Let's
true.
Go. I'll get in.
That's true. I don't know if you're supposed to say that, Keegan, but that is true.
You may have to join him, Bader.
There you go.
I'm in. Give me a match. Who do you want me to see? Who should I wrestle? I'll do it.
Joe Dubuque.
Let's see. Who we got? Someone. What are you like? You're 41?
Yep.
Keep going, buddy.
I just have to get.
I'm a couple years. I'm 4 years older than Ben, probably.
Okay. All right.
Maybe 5.
Yeah. So. But thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Keegan.
Appreciate your time, buddy.
Have a good one. We'll see you
Tigers.
soon. Good luck
Appreciate it.
healing up. See ya.
Thank you.
Keegan O'Toole.